You're a wizard, Harry.
Goodness.
Oh, man. All right. Sorry for the delay, everyone. We are live. Thank you for your infinite patience. Devils, spirits, demons, and every other sort of monster has managed to screw this day up the best they can. But somehow we made it.
Yeah, I think I had face to face with a beholder for about a half hour. It's unbelievable.
We are happy to introduce that we are joined by Keith Ammann. Thank you so much for joining us today, Keith.
Thanks for inviting.
It has been just a very, very interesting day. I'm going to be honest. Will you confirm that that's actually going to all the platforms?
Yes. It is for Twitch.
So, hello and welcome, heroes, to the Crit Academy. I am your host, Justin.
I am the guest, Keith Ammann.
I'm the co-host, Austin.
And I'm your co-host, Ian.
This podcast was created to provide our heroes with new and reusable material for both players and DMs.
Hope to inspire you with creative content that you can bring with you on your next adventure.
Our show may not be suitable for young children, but neither is our D&D games.
Nope. Keith, is your game suitable for young children?
Young children? I try to keep them at least PG-13, not
He's better than
a
us.
little gentler than.
Well,
Nope, he doesn't walk around with a half dragon, half demon pimps. So
Yeah,
fair enough.
that was a weird time. That was weird.
So I'm really excited. Keith, thank you for joining us. Our main topic today is going to be all about your newest book, Live to Tell the Tale. I'm super excited for that. Basically, an entire book of player tips and guidance, which is all about combat tactics and stuff. And
It's
you did an awesome job
really
waiting
well
this.
thought
So
out. I love
I
it.
can't wait.
Thank you.
I can't wait to get into that. I would like to let our all the Crit Nation know that we do have our Kickstarter will be launching August 4th. Our memorable monsters. If you'd like to support us, head on over and check it out. The page is up already. You can find it on Twitter and on Facebook. If that's not your bag, consider picking up one of our best-selling DM supplements.
I was just gonna say, I just realized August 4th is like a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I got a lot invested in this, so we better hopefully it goes somewhere.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully it goes
But
well.
yes, and if in this time of trials and tribulation, if you're having you can't make a monetary donation, head on over and sign up and subscribe to our YouTube or share our posts, anything like that. All that stuff helps us grow and reach new followers.
And
yeah.
most importantly, it's free, so it's not even really that bad.
Yeah, and you get free stuff too, which is awesome. We give away fat loots every week.
Oh yeah.
So, Crit Nation, thanks for joining us today here at Crit Academy Studios, where everything's made up and your roles don't matter.
Like a fantasy world in which nobody wants to tell them.
Yeah.
Nice.
Absolutely.
I love it. Fantastic. Now, we have a really great Let's Talk About Blank segment. Keith, I've actually been following your work for some time. I've stumbled across the Monsters Know What They're Doing blog. Keith, can you tell Crit Nation a little bit about yourself and your blog, The Monsters Know What They're Doing?
Sure. My name is Keith. I am an old school grognard. I got my start with AD&D back in the 80s. Left D&D for many years. Was in college just shortly after second edition D&D came out. I got hooked on Shadowrun and pretty much completely defected to that system for a while.
That's fair.
Then there were many years, at early post-graduation travels when I didn't really have any groups that I could play role-playing games with. When I got back into RPGs, it was through GURPS, and most of my RPG experience, my recent experience before 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons was with GURPS. Then my wife asked me to Dungeon Master a D&D game for her and some of her coworkers, and this was shortly after 5e came. So I started in, came back to D&D with edition, learned the system, and really quickly learned to appreciate some of the strides that it had made that I grew up.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
My big takeaway was wife who also plays. That's a huge plus right there.
That's a big takeaway. Very cool. I did notice your mic cuts off the last syllables of your sentence. Could you move your mic a smidge closer to your face? Can you do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys are cutting in and out a lot for me too.
That's-
I don't know. Maybe it's Discord.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe
this
we're
could be
born-
Discord. Yeah.
Yeah, Discord does have fits every now and then, unfortunately. But yeah.
All right. So, before we get into your the Monsters Know What They're Doing blog, we always like to ask our guests. The best thing about this the tabletop experience is the memories and the moments that we create in our lives. Could you tell us what your most memorable D&D moment is?
Yeah, it's a bit of a hard one.
It is a difficult. Because we've been generating a lot of them. Most memorable. I think one of my recent favorites is from a side quest we were playing with my main group, which is my wife and her coworkers. And my wife plays a hill dwarf ranger. Who the other players did not find out until well into the campaign that she had actually been the chief of her village and had abdicated because she didn't think she would be a good leader, and she had just left. And
That's cool.
Yeah.
chieftaincy had devolved to her younger sister, who was not prepared for it. And she checked in from time to time with her home village.
All right.
That is cool.
Learned that it was suffering from a cluster of mishaps, and so the whole party went back to see whether they could help. And the village was being besieged by goblinoids. And during one of these sieges, when they were launching makeshift incendiary projectiles into the village and managed to set the Temple of Baranar on fire, our druid, who was near the temple and who for the one time in her life had not bothered to prepare, create, or destroy water because it never came in handy for her, she decided instead to cast daylight on herself, transform into the shape of a giant eagle, and fly over to the palisade wall to help out with the combat over there. So the following day, there's a funeral scene where they're burying all the dwarves who died in the and they can be overheard referring to Baranar instead of by the usual epithets associated with that goddess. They're calling her Tuzmadar, which was translated as Firebird. And the reason that this was happening is that witnesses from the town during the battle, which took place at night, were swearing up and down that when the Temple of Baranar caught fire, the goddess herself rose from the flames in the form of a radiant eagle and flew to the wall to help her people in their time of need. And my wife, as her ranger, turned to the druid and said, "You broke my people's religion."
Oh, shit.
Holy cow. That's hardcore.
Yeah.
Damn.
That was many more layers deep than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's awesome.
I owe you guys an apology because nothing like that ever happens
Yeah,
in our
I was gonna
games.
say, I was like, hey, so when are you gonna step up your game?
Right, I know. Very cool, man. Thank
Holy
you.
cow.
That is such an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that. See, this is why I love that.
I'm
question.
glad the payoff was worth the build-up, because
Yeah.
boy, there were
Yeah.
there were accreted layers of background.
Yeah.
It was
bet.
worth listening
Wow.
to. That's awesome. All right,
That's
so
incredible.
what can you tell us about, for those that have not discovered your awesome blog, what can you tell us about Monsters Know What They're Doing?
The goal of the Monsters Know What They're Doing is to look at the stat blocks of various D&D monsters, 5th edition. It's very 5th edition specific. I should be upfront about that.
Okay.
All of the writing relates specifically to. So in each post, I look at a stat block of one monster or a group of related monsters. And a group of related monsters is only when they're oozes. And go down the stat block line by line to try to figure out, given the premise, every creature, aside from certain flukes like undead fiends, every creature that exists in the world and has had time to reproduce and create more of its will be subject to the forces of evolution. Even where magic exists, evolution still exists. And so creatures will learn to survive given the particular features and traits that they have. And so they will have an instinctive understanding of how to use those traits effectively. And the effective use of those traits will distinguish their behavior and make fight in a way that's different from the style of another creature that has different features, different traits, and has evolved under different conditions. So really, it's just an obsessive exercise in verisimilitude. It's trying to figure out how to make each monster most convincingly, and at the same time, get the most effectiveness out of the features in its stat block. Because if you're not doing that, you're not really giving your players the full challenge promised by the challenge rate. You know, you might have a CR7 monster that, if you're running it ineffectively, it's really only a CR4, CR5 monster. The other thing is, I'm trying to save Dungeon Master's cognitive load, because we have a lot of decisions to make, a lot of numbers and facts and mindsets to keep track of during a game session, and in combat especially, that stuff all piled. And more decisions that you can make before the session begin, fewer of them you have to make during the session when you're already very heavily cognitively. So when you don't have as much cognitive burden during the combat encounter, you make better decisions in general. You keep track of things better. Things flow more smoothly. They're more high speed, low drag. Nobody loves or from, so a little prep in that regard can go a long way, and that's what I'm seeking to provide with them. For beginners, it's learning to understand what all the monsters are capable of, and sort of how to step into their shoes and think about what they can be, as well as what they should be doing. For the more experienced dungeon master, you could probably do all of this on your own, but I'm trying to save you.
Right.
Right. No. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really does do that. For instance, the game I just ran with my patrons on yesterday, they're level 6, but I had them going up against level 1 spiders on the side of a cliff that's coated in spider webbing, and I felt like I kind of harnessed my inner Keith when I was doing this, because everything they did tied to the fact that they could walk on the walls. They focused less on just making an attack and just grabbing the players and walking off the edge with them.
I'm not gonna lie.
That's a good tactic for that terrain, because what are the players? They can't climb the webs.
Right.
They can't just jump off and take their chances. They have to have some way to save themselves once they stab that spider that's holding them there. If they succeed in killing the thing, what do they do next besides?
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack.
It was fun.
I'll admit, Justin, when you described it just now, the awesome/terrifying mental image I had in my head was the players were trying to climb up the cliff, but the spiders were ambushing them and moving around like the characters from Attack on Titan.
Oh, no, I didn't think about that, but that's cool. So, honestly, I think I'm a better DM because I've been using your website. I do recommend All Crit Nation if you have not checked it out. I think it's themonstersknow.com, right?
That's correct.
There is a link in our show notes, so you can head on over to critacademy.com/episode 179. you can get it there too. So yeah, I overall this is one of my favorite resources to use. You have clearly a plethora of knowledge and understanding on this stuff, and it definitely. Beware, players, if you you introduce this resource to your DM, the monsters will be harder.
They will be effectively smarter, more cunning, and thus more powerful.
Right.
Yeah, but you know how much I like combat anyway, so I'm cool with that.
Right.
Right.
So, I do want to thank you for creating this awesome resource for people like me. You really do know your stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
I think that'll do it for our Let's Talk About Blank segment.
Which means we have a gift to give away then.
Woo! Yeah, we
Hooray!
do that.
So our gift that we are giving away today is from Loresmith, the modular dungeon tiles, the Arcania set in specific. Now, obviously, if you guys have been with us for a while, oh, I'm not being heard at all, am I? Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
We got you.
Oh, hey, I can hear me now.
Go.
Hey, hi. Can everyone hear me?
Keep going.
Okay. So our gift to give away today is from Loresmith, the modular dungeon tiles, the Arcania set. Now, the modular dungeon tiles are an easy way to create your own beautiful digital maps. The Arcania set in specific lets you make dark, shadowy dungeon maps rich with the fumes of arcane secrets. So hopefully maybe you won't find those spiders that are hiding on the side of a cliff.
Yeah. Keith, who is our winner today? Keith?
Uh-oh.
Did we lose him?
I don't know. I see him in the channel.
Man, we're on fire today.
Yeah, we're just, it's all kinds of shit.
I'm not hearing him at all.
Yeah. I don't see his little thing flipping on.
I
Yeah.
saw flicker once or twice, but nothing.
You there? Who's our winner today, Austin?
Our winner today is Mari Squad. Oh, I just missed it, and now I can't. We are all on fire today.
Yeah, it's great. Congratulations.
Maori squad.
Oh.
All right. Keith, are you still there?
I am.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Oh,
That was weird.
Yeah. I think we lost you for a second.
oh no. Oh boy.
All right. So on to our main topic today, which I'm super excited about. Look at this shit.
Yeah, this is.
Uh,
One, let's just look. We can look at it real
Can
quick.
I just say that Live to Tell the Tale, combat tactics for player characters, this artwork is awesome. And for me, it encompasses
Hold it higher.
encompasses everything that is an adventuring party. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because look at all the smiles on their faces. Nobody takes their game serious anymore, really. So this really captured everything. Was this inspired by
Yeah.
anything particularly, Keith?
Not in particular. I created those 5 characters just to have a diverse party to use in illustrations. Monsters know what they're doing. The book.
Okay.
And if you, I don't know if you noticed that they are the same characters as Monsters Know. The same ones who get their butts kicked over and over and over again in every single illustration in that.
I did
Here
not
we
notice
see
that.
they actually lived to tell the tale.
I see what you did there. But
Yeah, the monsters knew what they were doing, but they lived to tell the tale. So yeah, this is them retired and living off their accumulated treasures.
That is
When I first got a glimpse of what Leo Presland had done with the concept that I'd given them, I was just giddy. There's no other word for it, giddy at how great this cover is.
yeah, it really is.
It's so
nice.
spectacular.
It's so funny. Our buddy here works at Barnes and Nobles, and
Oh.
he texted me. He's like, "Dude, I just found this amazing book. We got to talk about it on the show. It's called Live to Tell the Tale." I literally found out that like hours before that you'd be a guest on the show. I was like, you know what? I think that's a great idea.
Even crazier, because my manager is the one who knows that I do the D&D podcast, he actually came out and was like, hey, also, I think you'd be interested in this.
Yeah,
So it was just
nice.
like this weird chain of events
Right.
that just led to this. And it was
It's
just
been
really
phenomenal.
cool.
So, we've had the privilege of reading through this book, but for those that have not experienced the awesomeness of this, can you tell us a little bit about Live to Tell the Tale and really how it came to be?
Sure. Well, It came to be as an offshoot of the blog because I was getting feedback from dungeon masters who, not knowing that their philosophies of what it means to be a DM might have been a little bit different from mine, were thanking me for helping them get total party kills. And I said to myself, that is not what I was going for here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to provide players with something that would help balance the scales, that would help them deal with the greater threats that they were now facing because of me. Live to Tell the Tale is basically an activist. I created it originally as a self-published, and when it went through 2 editions and then when Saga Press approached me and offered me a book deal for The Monsters Know What They're Doing, Live to Tell the Tale was part of the package, and I had the opportunity to expand, revise it, fix some mistakes, and just generally create a more useful product. So the goal of Live to Tell the Tale is to arm players with the knowledge of how to make effective use of their characters in a combat encounter when faced with monsters that are pulling out all the stock.
Gotcha.
And I want to really emphasize that this is not a character build optimization guide. This is not a guide for the min-maxer, because I am an immersive role player at heart. I love coming up with wild character concepts, getting into the minds of my characters, imagining them as real people living out real experiences. And I create non-optimal characters all the time. You know, a min-maxer is never going to create a fighter, a wood elf fighter. Why would they when they could create a half-orc fighter or a mountain dwarf fighter and get the bonuses to strength and constitution?
Makes
That's
sense.
fair. Yeah.
You know, maybe I want to create a wood elf fighter just because I like wood elves and I feel like playing a fighter. You know, that's fine. 100% on board with that. The point of the book is not to tell you how to build the best character. The point of the book is to tell you, having created a character from your heart, what is the best way to play that character? How can you make them the best them? How can you optimize not your stats, but your choices? And also, how can you save yourself some cognitive load during the combat encounter itself by making some standing decisions beforehand based on what you're good at, what kinds of features and spells and those sorts of things that you have. Can you create some rules for yourself about when you're going to use those things and how to use them effectively, so that in the middle of a combat encounter, you're not looking at 8 different abilities at once and trying to figure out which of those 8 might be the best for this situation.
Right.
You've already said, oh, well, these 4 people are here within this radius. That's the condition for using number 3. So I'm just going to use number. You've already got the rule in place that you created based on how you want to play this character, and now you can just, and it makes the decision making so much easier by pruning away things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Right. And that's actually one of the first things that I noticed about your product is you're upfront about that, and in spite of that, there's so much detail that even me, if I choose to be an optimizer, there is some takeaway from that. But you can definitely see that that's not the core of what you were going for.
And it's certainly possible, even if you are a min-max, to make choices in a combat encounter that are suboptimal. You know, you might have built the perfect beast, but then it's stumbling over its own feet when it's actually put into action. You know, I think of knowing combat capabilities of your character as another form of role playing. It's role playing your character's competence because they are in this world hyper competent. They can do much more than the NPC commoner and guard and even the acolyte and the bandit and some of those other more specialized ones. They've got a lot of tricks up their sleeve, and you might not be thinking all the time about how to make the best use of your character's abilities, but your character is spending a lot of time about how to make
Right.
the best use of your character's abilities. It's probably kind of an obsession of theirs. And so you kind of owe it to yourself to step into their shoes, and spend some time being them, thinking about the best way to do it.
For sure.
I think a great example I have in my experience in the past couple of weeks is I'm actually playing 2 games of this in the advertise right now, but my Saturday game, just by pure dumb luck, effectively the only people who showed up that week were all 3 paladins of the group and nobody else. And going by the module, we encountered a winged demon.
Ha!
And paladins being melee only for the most part, you can see the problem there.
Yeah.
I happened to go first.
Right.
I'm like, nope, I got this. Ran straight at the demon and then grappled him so he could not fly away, so everybody else can jump on this thing and beat him to death.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm not smiting
There you
which I like to do, but he's keeping this guy on the ground and helping my allies, even from being pecked in the face to get to let go.
Right.
Yeah, in one of the sample battles in Live to Tell the Tale, one of the characters is a melee fighter who didn't even bring any hand axes to throw, which, that was a suboptimal decision on his part. And if I were to rewrite the battle from scratch today, which I am disinclined to do because I already did,
Right.
I would, give him some hand axes because your melee fighters have to have some kind of backup when something flies out of their reach. And if they are strength based, the best way to do that is to give.
Right.
Give him something to throw at him.
Although I'll admit my backup for flying enemies moving out of my melee range in 4th edition with my Havoc Barbarian was I jump really high. Oh, you thought you escaped my reach? Wrong. Bounces 30 feet in the air. I was going, what the crap? Good times.
Perhaps, yeah. In part 1, you discuss ability contours and identifying combat roles. Can you tell us a bit about those?
Sure. Ability contour is my coinage. It's a phrase I concocted while I was writing the Monsters No Way doing it. Basic idea behind it is that the pattern of high and low scores among your abilities forms a shape, and that shape is an indication of what kind of role you should be playing in. So, for example, if you have a character who has high scores in strength and constitution, high enough to make strength their primary offensive ability and constitution their primary defensive ability, then that is an indication that they would be a natural fit for the frontline combat role, which is also in other contexts sometimes referred to as the brute or the tank. The character goes right up to the front, deals direct damage with a melee weapon, and takes hits so that other people don't have. I've compared combat role to the Myers-Briggs type, except that instead of whether you're an extrovert or you're an introvert, whether you rely on sensing or perceiving to receive information, or sensing or intuition, this is the axes here are you a melee fighter or a ranged fighter? Do you try to avoid damage or absorb it? Do you rely on weapons or spells? Are you a close range fighter or a long range? Are you mobile or stationary? And when you put together those things, you end up with 6 main roles. The frontline who is the tank, the main damage dealer, who's also the damage absorber, so that other people don't have to take the hits. The shock attacker tries to do a large burst of damage very quickly and then needs to get out because they don't have a whole lot of staying power. The skirmisher, who does have a lot of staying power and can fight a battle of attrition, but has a more moderate damage output and is relying on being mobile and going where they need to be. The marksman, which is sort of a long-range cousin to the shock attacker, using a long-range weapon and augmenting that with a high wisdom to use for perception to spot enemies. The supporter, who's a closer range spellcaster, whose primary responsibilities are buffing and healing, and then the spell slinger, who is the long range spellcaster trying to avoid damage, stay behind cover, and cast spells from a distance.
Personally, I really enjoyed the grouping and categorizing of the different positions, because I think that can help the players better understand what their responsibilities typically are in a game, and I think sometimes that gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I also
That is a very large part of why I put together that combat role reference.
Mhm. the
To kind of give that picture about where, what positions everyone's playing on the.
Yeah, I especially like the almost simplicity behind it when you actually like put on the charts so that people can quickly like reference to it, and then they can immediately assess that, oh, I'm doing this, and then they can immediately go back to whatever they were doing should they actually have the book on them while they're playing, which I mean,
Which you should.
I probably would, if considering all the things I've seen in there.
What I would actually suggest is that you don't necessarily need to bring that book to your session. What you need to do is just sit down with it for about an hour outside your session and take notes in a way that makes sense to you, and bring your notes. Because your notes are going to be your specific instructions to your, and you don't need the rest of the book. You need to know what applies to you. And if you take some notes like that and just write rules and recommendations to yourself and bring that, it'll be focused on the things that are most important to you. It'll be written in the way you communicate with yourself in your own head. It'll just be more concise and more. I actually, in my section on spellcast, I recommend to players who are playing spellcasters that they make their own quote unquote spell, in which they write down the spells that they have, and then based on various criteria, jot down the rules for themselves on when they should cast each spell. Just to give you an example, is a spell that has a 20-foot radius area of effect, and that works in a way that makes it very useful against mobs of weak creatures, and completely useless against individual strong creatures. And so
Which spell did
if
you say?
you, I'm sorry,
Which spell was that?
sleep.
Sleep.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so sleep is very useful against mobs of weak creatures, completely useless against individual strong creatures. There's a table in the Dungeon Master's Guide. In my edition, it's on page 249, called Targets in Area of Effect. And the purpose of that table is to tell you in Theater of the Mind combat how many target creatures an area of effect spell affects. But I use it in Live to Tell and in the Monsters Know as a rule of thumb for how many creatures you want to try to target with a particular spell. So, for example, if according to the table, a spherical spell with a 20-foot radius, like would be expected to affect 4 creatures in a Theater of the Mind combat, then in gridded combat, you want to use it when you feel pretty confident that you can get 4 targets. And if you're going to affect fewer than 4 targets with it, then maybe there's another spell that's more appropriate to the situation. So if I were making my own personal spell book, I would jot down next use against 4+ clustered weak creatures.
Love it.
And I wouldn't even consider casting it until that situation came up. But when that situation did come up, I would immediately look to that spell to decide whether it was.
That's genius. That's genius.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see how like writing down tips like that for newer players can definitely help them out and optimize their efficiency, if you will. Not necessarily min-maxing, mind you, but
Right.
anywho. And you also in your book refer to a plan B, if you will, when it comes to actions such as dodge, dash, disengage. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my best friend was also my first dungeon master back in high school. He and I and 2 other friends whom we played with back had we were not tactical thinkers back then by any stretch, and we had a running joke that for our characters, there was plan A and plan B. Plan A was get up, and plan B was run. So plan B has endured over the years as our shorthand for so dodge, dash, and disengage are the 3 actions that you generally want to consider using when you are retreating from a and they each have different applications. Each one has a set of circumstances that make it more desirable and a set of circumstances that make it less desirable. For example, dodge, because of the mathematics of advantage and disadvantage, makes much more sense when you have a very high armor class than when you have a very low armor class, which is counterintuitive. You would think that a paladin in plate mail would not dodge as well as a rogue in leather, but actually the opposite is true. The dodging helps the heavily armored paladin more than the lightly armored. Just a quirk of the dash is very good if you really want to get away and you can afford to take an opportunity attack on the way. As long as you're only going to take one, dash offers you the best chances of getting. But if you're being attacked by multiple melee opponents at once, dashing away is going to subject you to a large number of opportunity attacks. You might be able to absorb one, but you don't want to have to take 3 or 4 or 5. So in that instance, you disengage. Now, disengage is not going to give you a great chance of getting away if your enemies are going to stubbornly pursue. But if they are content with driving you off, then that is going to let you get away with the least amount of damage. Probably no damage. Also, if you are just straight up faster than they are, if you're playing the Wood Elf Monk and they're just a bunch of moot guards, then disengage is going to allow you to outpace them. You can get away with without incurring an opportunity attack, and they won't be able to catch you. So knowing your speed, how many your armor class, how many melee opponents you're engaged with, whether you have anyone available to cover your retreat. Also, very important, whether any of your opponents is invisible. All of these things are factors in which of these 3 actions you ought to take when you decide, okay, it's time for me to get.
Yeah, and I really think you really outlined that so well. That's why I wanted to hear more about it, because that is something that I feel like those features don't get used nearly enough. And kind of to amplify that, or to respond to that, I actually created characters that solely focused on those features. I think I've talked to you guys about the grapplers who just grapple and dodge and wait for everyone else to kill shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
And I feel like
And dodging is a good action to take when there are other people who, when you're just trying to kill time while other people deal the damage.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Plan B, also known as the 3 Ds: dodge, disengage, and dash. Or if you have a mage in the party, the 5 Ds: dodge, dash, disengage, and dimension door.
It's a solid one.
I really enjoyed that. Once again, this is just slivers of the wisdom that's in here. One of the last things I wanted to touch on, my personal favorite section of the book was dedicated to the individual class tactics, the classes and their mechanics, and especially when it comes to multi-class, and that stuff can get pretty complex and challenging. Did you run into any challenges when you were trying to define the class tactics for this? And if you did, kind of how did you overcome or deal with those?
Really, the biggest challenges I faced was the single biggest challenge I faced was understanding how the Warlock worked. Because the Warlock is a very weird class, and if you haven't had the opportunity to watch it in action and really study and understand the implications of some of the features of that class, you're going to get totally the wrong idea of it. The Warlock is a class, and it doesn't work the same as any other spellcaster. And when you see, oh my god, they only get 2 spell slots? What's the deal with that? Well, number one, they get those slots back every time they take a short rest. Number two, they are always casting their leveled spells at the highest level available to them, no matter what. So if they have 4th level spells and they cast sleep, they don't have to boost it by spending a higher spell slot. It is always a 4th level sleep spell. Now, some of the implications of are that a Warlock character, when choosing spells, should focus on ones that benefit. Don't bother with spells that or that gain diminishing returns as you upcast them. If they do gain diminishing returns, then once the returns have diminished past the point where you like them, then replace that spell with something else. But if you're needing or wanting to cast spells that cannot be boosted with a higher level spell slot, then look for the invocations that let you cast those spells, rather than learning them as Warlock spells.
Yeah, sure.
Recognizing how taking Pact of the Blade makes you a very different Warlock from Pact of the Chain or Pact of the because it turns you from a spell slinger into a shock attack. Recognizing that because you have in the past been relying on charisma as your primary offensive ability, and in all likelihood dexterity as your primary defensive ability, then when you become a blade lock, now you want to use a finesse weapon, because now you can make dexterity an offensive ability. Whereas if you are choosing a longsword or a mace or something like that as your blade lock weapon, well, now you got to hope you've got a high enough strength to be effective with. Much smarter to choose a scimitar or a rapier,
For sure.
because now you can use your dexterity to attack as well as to. So, yeah, it took me a while to understand the Warlock. Also, some of the newer subclasses in Xanathar's. Eberron fans will be a little bit disappointed to find out that I didn't do anything with that book. The manuscript had to be in long before I ever got my hands on a copy of Eberron. But I will say, for any Eberron fans who are listening, if you're playing an artificer, chances are you're falling into the supporter role. and you want to think about how to play the artificer to
Very cool. That's there's the reason that was one of my favorites is because there's so much information there. I couldn't imagine how much research and time kind of went into to doing that. So kudos to you because I think you really for the contents in there you really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, a lot of that is just looking at player class features the exact same way you would look at monster features. You know, when you look at enough monster stat blocks, things start to jump out. Combinations that involve certain conditions, particularly blinded, restrained, paralyzed, prone, stunned, charmed, things that bonus actions, things that uh, uh, allow you to do something when you wouldn't otherwise be able to. Synergies. Those things jump out at you. And so being in that mindset helps.
Right.
What is your favorite piece of advice from...
Subclass feature.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I think we lost you.
I think my favorite piece of advice is how to decide when to use the lucky feat.
I can see that.
And there are a couple of judgment call things, like use it when the battle is at a turning point where it's starting to go against you and you have the chance to turn the tide. If you just botched a roll that you feel like you should have made and the outcome is important to you, and you could have succeeded if the number on your D20 had been a 7, then go ahead and use your luck point to re-roll that, because that means you had at least a 2/3 chance of succeeding in the first place, and so your odds of succeeding on the second try are. But the big thing, and the thing that just made my jaw drop when I realized, is that if you are attacking or trying to make an ability check with disadvantage, lucky gives you an extra die in addition to the die or dice that you're rolling, and then lets you choose all the dice you rolled. Well, if you have disadvantage, that means you rolled 2 dice, and now you get to roll and now you get to choose your result from all 3. So it turned disadvantage into advantage +1.
Oh yeah.
That is awesome.
And so the real brilliance of the lucky feat is not just every once in a while you get to turn a failure into a success. It every once in a while you get to turn something that you really, by every right in the universe, should have failed, and potentially turn it into an improbable success. And so because it does that, it can be one of the most cinematic features in the entire.
Well, my rogue just
Damn.
changed immediately. Because I actually didn't know that,
You
so
know
that's
what's
cool.
worse is I read through this and totally just didn't absorb the super advantage.
Yeah, I actually remember this very topic being discussed in a few Facebook groups too. So, but it is nice to see this reiterated because I think a lot of people don't realize this.
Yeah, I certainly
I
did.
was one of those people that did not realize this.
So
Now watch out using it as a rogue, because if you have disadvantage on that attack, even if you use lucky to turn it into a success, you are still completely disqualified from dealing sneak attack damage on that attack. So be mindful of that if you're thinking of using it for your, because rogues tend not to be big damage dealers unless they are dealing the damage with their sneak attack, which is why my recommendation for rogues is always be asking yourself, how am I going to set myself up to deal sneak attack damage this
Absolutely.
because that is really the only way a rogue is going to be truly effective in combat, is by finding and using the ways of dealing sneak attack damage.
wow, this first of all, can I just say thank you for all the massive wisdom you've just dumped upon us and our audience.
No kidding.
As I can say, I have personally read through this book, and I'm gonna have to finish reading it again because I clearly missed some things. for whatever reason. Probably because I read when I'm on break at work. But
I also try.
Well, and also if they're not relevant to the character you're playing, you don't necessarily need them, and you don't necessarily focus.
and
That's a big
since
part
I
of it.
always DM, that's honestly I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love the content in this book. As our show been going on 4 years now, every episode we have to do a player tip, and here comes Keith with a whole damn book on it.
Yeah.
I really struggle regularly to come up with something different every time.
Literally just handed one of the co-hosts a player tip.
Oh yeah, you just
like
gave me
spoon-fed it to me.
Right?
Well, to be fair, after 179 episodes,
Yeah,
it is kind of hard to come up with new stuff all the time.
but this book was an absolutely fun to read through. Like I said, I've been a follower of your blog for some time now, and I absolutely love your writing style. I used to follow the Angry DM or Angry GM a lot more, and I kind of moved away from that, reading your stuff more because while I love his content, yours hits home closer to my play style, and I really get a lot out of it. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I do have a question that I am obligated to ask every content creator that comes on our show. Is there a secret project that you're currently working on that you could give Crit Nation just a little taste of?
Well, anytime I've got something actually nailed down, I'm not going to keep a secret. I'm going to share it.
That's fair.
I am talking with my editor at Saga about a couple more upcoming books. But nothing has been nothing's been inked yet. I haven't gotten a publishing agreement offer for those yet. So I can't promise that either of them is coming. I can say that right now I have up on the Dungeon Masters Guild a little subclass of my own devising for the Paladin, the Oath of Deliverance, which is sort of a liberator paladin. When I was looking at paladin subclasses, I noticed that every one of them is flavored a little bit by another class. So your base Oath of Devotion paladin is very cleric flavored. Oath of Vengeance is a little warlock flavored. Oath of the Ancients is kind of druid flavored. So, and I thought it would be interesting to create a paladin who was not necessarily lawful and who had a little bit of a rogue flavor to it, but at the same time was unmistakably a paladin. And I'm pretty proud of it. And so that's up on the DM's Guild now. And within the next week or so, I'm going to be putting a guide to using the 5 factions of the Sword Coast to generate adventure ideas.
I'm down for that, dude, because I feel like those did not get nearly enough love.
And the other thing is that I mentioned that my wife plays a ranger. Specifically, she plays a beastmaster, which is the most derided subclass of the most derided class, 5th edition. And I think there's just a lot of sense out there, and I got this firsthand from her, of not really knowing how to work effectively with the beast companion. And so I'm working on a little thing which I'm just going to make available as a free, on my website. Think of it as a free supplement to Live to Tell the Tale, specifically on tactics for Beastmaster Rangers going up through different levels, because I think they need the help and provide it. So I'm going to.
Well,
So that'll be appearing relatively soon. I can't promise exactly when, but
when it does show up, tag us in it, and we'll make sure to, because that really does sound like something that we would want to cover on our show.
Absolutely.
Because I'm one of the few people that actually likes the Beastmaster the way it is. And I'm pretty, as far as I know, I'm the only person that likes the Beastmaster the way it is. But,
well, and just to be clear, this is not an attempt to fix the Ranger class or to fix the Beastmaster subclass. It still has its flaws, but it's a guide to how to make the most effective use of a Beastmaster given the rules as
Yep.
because it is confusing, and it is hard to wrap your mind around it unless you just sit down for a while and deliberately
For sure.
set yourself figuring it out. And I will say, one of the things that I discovered that surprised me is that it is not self-evidently true that a CR 1/4 Beast Companion is always going to be better than a CR 0 or a CR 1. There are some low CR companions that can make very competitive Beast Companions, thanks to the fact that Beast Companions get bonuses to proficiency bonuses to all sorts of things,
Right.
including their attacks and damage, and also that their hit points are based on the ranger. So just to throw out one example, the Owl. CR0 deals 1 damage on it. You'd think that it's going to be, why would anyone ever choose an owl instead of a panther or a wolf or a... Well, they have keen hearing and sight, plus they're proficient in perception, which means they get the ranger's proficiency bonus on top of that, which means as soon as you get that owl at level 3, it has +5 to perception and +5 to stealth. With keen hearing and sight, it has advantage on those perception checks. So now on passive checks, it has an effective +10. You have a little flying feathery thing here that has a 20 passive perception. And also because flyby, it can attack and then fly out of reach without ever provoking an opportunity attack. So maybe it's only dealing 3 damage, but it's dealing 3 damage and it can never be hit back. It's like a little drone strike. Just deal an extra 3 damage.
I like that.
When you yourself can't. So it's got some potential in it. Also, 120 feet of dark vision.
Yep.
You want one of these with you when you're out at. You are not going to be surprised at night you have an owl.
Yeah, since you don't have the video feed.
Whoever would have guessed it was CR0? But
Yeah,
when
right.
you do the deep dive, you discover all kinds of things.
Yeah, we know you can't see this because of the video feed, but the moment you said choose an owl for your companion, me and Austin immediately pointed at Justin because every time Justin does play Ranger, he plays Beastmaster and he uses an owl.
It's awesome.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, owls are surprisingly effective,
Yep.
given that they are only CR0.
So, first of all, I want to.
Well, and the other thing about the owl is that an off the rack owl has 1 hit point, right? But as soon as you get it at level 3 as a ranger, it has 20.
Yep.
And it's only going to go up from.
Right.
It's an upgrade.
And because you can't hit it, it makes it really well. You can hit it, but it really makes it a lot more difficult. Its survivability shoots way up.
It's a Giga Owl.
Yeah.
I think. Man, I could go on the Ranger Beastmaster thing for hours. Let me know when that thing released so I can blow it up. We might even make it a main topic on our show because I hate seeing it get so much hate when there is opportunity. Is it going to be the highest DPS? No.
Nope.
That's not what it's designed for. It's very much a support class, and I would love to see what you end up coming with, how to get the most out of it. So, I think that'll do it for our main topic, Live to Tell the Tale. I highly recommend you guys pick up this book. It is very, very powerful resource for beginner, intermediate, and even some advanced players. It's got he's doing the what is that from the
Price is Right.
Price is
Price is
Right
Right, yeah.
of the object. How much do you think it's worth? No, and I really absolutely love all the little tidbits you shared with us. Before we move on to the unearthed tips and tricks, we have another gift to give away, compliments of Jeff Stevens Games.
And our next giveaway is Scourge of the Nightingale, Part 1, A Song of Love. A masked menace terrifies the region, raiding villages to fund her devious plans. Unknowingly, the adventurers stumble into her most recent evil scheme, the kidnapping of a famous performer known as Devon Artis. Their mission is to deliver a ransom and collect Devon, though, as in most cases, not all goes as planned.
Yes, as a guy who has actually played through this adventure, I've made it through the first two. I have not finished it, but I'm really excited to finish the trilogy. It is very fun. And of course, it's from Jeff Stevens, so that guy always comes up with some crazy shit.
Yep.
Who is our winner today, Austin?
Our winner today is SGT Lars 13.
Yep, I think it's Sergeant Lars, probably.
Sergeant Lars
13.
Hey, well, you.
Nice.
It's very tough for me to connect all the dots. Okay, I'm sorry.
Congratulations, Sergeant Lars 13. If you enjoy the product, please leave Jeff Stevens a review. If you didn't win, have no fear. Crit Academy's here. Head on over to critacademy.com/Jeff Stevens and get Villains and Layers 3 and Encounters on the Savage Seas 3 free.
Yeah, English be hard.
Yeah, especially for me.
Yeah,
I only
I can't
speak
do it.
bad English, so. All right. Hit the button. I don't know if he'll hear
Woo.
that.
And now, what you've all been waiting
Hopefully.
for. Our
No, that's
Unearthed
fine.
Tips and tricks
Yeah, it's
segment,
really low.
where we
Oh, well,
bring
whatever.
you new and reusable material for both players and DMs.
Yeah. I'm excited. Could you hear that, Keith?
I could hear bits of.
Oh, yeah, it's probably,
Alright.
it was
It's
kinda
probably
low.
yeah. It was
I don't
really
know if the
low. I don't know.
Kindle's turned down. Anyways, I am super excited for today's Honor Tips and Tricks. Keith, as somebody who has not actually been on our show before, hopefully you'll have a good experience. Maybe you'll come back on your next product. Every week we give away new and reusable material for both players and DMs. Would you like to start us off with our character concept today? You can either read or paraphrase
All right.
the content there.
The unwilling prophecy. You don't even want to be. Though you have some skills, you never considered yourself an adventurer. And then one day you were in a room when a cry for help was. And those in a room consulted one who can read the future and gave advice, including how many heroes are needed, and makes a statement in regards to the requirements of one who must. Sadly, you fit that description, and you happened to be.
I happen to be in the room.
It's like the wrong place, wrong time
Yeah,
thing.
'cause
It's just
you're
like what?
Oh, why am I here?
I'll admit, when I came up with this concept, I totally ripped off the 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas.
Oh, is that how it is? You just happen to be in the right place, right time?
Yeah, because they were like, received a cry for help from a friendly kingdom, and they would consult like the seer who was giving advice, and to say 13 warriors must go, and all the Vikings in the groups are volunteering one by one. After like the 12th one volunteered, and the 13th one can't be a Northman. And they all looked at Antonio Banderas, who was an Arab guy, who was the one non-Viking guy in the room. Crap.
I didn't want to be in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened.
What do you think about this concept,
Sounds good to me. I wonder how you keep them from just walking off in the middle of an adventure. I think that's gonna call on your DM to create a whole lot of entertaining Deus Ex Machina situations to force them back.
Something.
Well, in the 13th Warrior, they did leave on a boat, so...
Oh yeah, so he literally couldn't leave.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they have to do in this one. He's just
I guess, I don't know. This is a very
It's a good one.
interesting one because this goes against what we normally preach, which is build a character that wants to go on the adventure. I think I've made that as a player tip. You don't want to be the log, but this I think could work because if you set it up with your DM, because obviously if you're running this as a character, the hope is that you're going to bring this to the DM and say, hey, this is the type of character I want. Can we come up with a situation that forces them into it? I was a big fan of Naruto for a long time, and there's a character in it who always talks about, oh, this is troublesome, or oh, this is a drag.
Ah, Shikamaru.
Shikamaru, and it's
Yeah.
just, everything that happens is just inconvenient to him, but he just does it because he's a good guy, but he doesn't
Yeah.
want to. That's what this kind of reminded me of.
Well, he's also the smartest guy in the room.
Well, and there's a lot of opportunity here for player DM negotiation where you say, listen, as the player, I want to go on this adventure, but my character doesn't really want to. So please, DM, feel free throw at me any and all kind of ridiculous things that force me to get back on the hero's path. You can also have a thing where they don't really want to do it, but they're made an offer they can't refuse. They get, it's they they get a lot of positive attention, praise, and they don't really want to be the hero, but they kind of like the praise, and so they keep doing the hero things just because of the attention it gets.
Ooh, I like that.
There's variations in this.
For sure.
Kind of going on with that, maybe your character's a bard, and maybe the thing that keeps him there is like, this could be a good story to tell people down the line. I can make money off this.
Maybe, I like that.
And then jump cut straight to when the boulder's coming down after them and they're running away from them. They're like, I really wish I was at home now.
All right. I think that'll do it for our character concept this week, the Unwilling Prophesied one. Our monster variant is the Hellstinger Scorpion. These monstrous beasts are the result of powerful arcane power. Wow, I could have wrote that way better. That's created when a rift opens to the elemental chaos. Scorpions that were caught in the fire plains' torrent of power. That's 3 powers and 2 lines. That's do better, Justin.
That's triple the power!
Evolve to a more dangerous threat. These creatures find comfort in conditions of extreme heat, making their home in and around volcanoes, deserts, the 9 hells, and the elemental plane of fire. Their claws radiate searing heat, but the burn of its claws are nothing compared to the searing pain caused by its fiery stinger. The poison injected burns from the inside and even makes the target more vulnerable to fire.
Oh, that's never good.
So, in order to make this monster variant, you're going to start with the stat block of the Wyvern. You're going to remove its flight ability and its fight or bite ability. 2 of its more, the flight is a big loss, so we offset that with a little bit of other options. You're going to alter the multi-clack to basically be the claw in the new Spitfire attack, and the stinger will be at a poison condition on failure.
Ooh.
So you're going to give it, the new features are fire resistance. You're going to give it hellish poison. A creature poisoned by the scorpion gains a vulnerability to fire. Creatures immune to fire are immune to this effect. And then you're also going to give it the point blank feature, which is Scorpion does not have disadvantage on ranged attacks against creatures in melee range grappled by it. That's very specific. That doesn't apply when there's other creatures near him, just the ones he's got grappled.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to make his power too powerful by getting rid of that big ranged attack, bullshit. You're going to give him a ranged Spitfire attack, which basically is just a fire damage attack. Gives him a little bit of range. And then you're going to give him a unique legendary, or 2 unique legendary actions. Armored Exoskeleton. The Scorpion braces itself at the start of the next turn. The next attack roll against it has disadvantage. And then its Squeeze is its other legendary. When the Scorpion deals bludgeoning damage, equal to its strength modifier to 1 creature. It is grappling. Now, this one does near the top end of the CR limits damage, so be mindful of that. But I thought that was necessary since it lost most of its mobility.
Yeah.
Which is what the Wyvern's wings grant it. So, that being said, you're going to reflavor it as a giant spider of death, basically. A hell spider. Not spider, scorpion.
Hell Scorpion.
It injects you with its not so fun properties, and then you are suddenly engulfed in flame.
And weaker to its Spitfire attack, which is the goal, to grapple and then just spew
fire
into your face. What do you think about this, Keith? This is the monster expert.
I've noticed a hole that you're going to need to pat.
That's okay.
And that is, it doesn't have any way to grapple. And so what's going to happen is that it's going to have to substitute a grapple for its entire multi-attack. So what I would do is take the Wyvern's Claws attack and add a grapple rider to it. Say it grapples on a hit, figure out what the escape DC is, and then that way, when it uses its claws, and of course now a Scorpion's claws can actually pinch like a crab.
Right.
A Wyvern's claws can't. So now you've given a little bit more Scorpion flavor, and you've given it the ability to set up the the other feature that it has.
So you're suggesting because it doesn't have grapple built into the attack? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, because if you don't build the grapple into the claw attack, then you don't have any way for it to grapple other than by using its entire action to grapple.
Correct.
And that's not going to deal any damage. So I would make grappling a rider on the claw.
All right, so I actually had considered that. And what I did, and this is just my thought, and I'd love to hear your expertise on it. That's why I included the squeeze as a legendary action that it can take up to 3 of in a round. So by using its regular action to grapple, it can then use...
Well, to be fair, we didn't read that one yet.
Huh?
We didn't read that section yet.
Oh, on the squeeze?
Yeah.
No, we did.
I thought I did.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
Anyways, it gains a legendary action squeeze that basically just does like the clomping, bludgeoning damage. Do you think it would be more effective?
So what you're suggesting is that the claws don't actually deal any damage with the hit, only with the squeeze.
Yes. Now, do you think it would be better just to make it as part of the attack and then include the damage all there, and then butt out the legendary action?
Yeah, I would still make grappling a rider on the claws, and then if you are really concerned about balance, just reduce the initial damage that the claws do. Like instead of 2d8 plus 4, make it 2d4 plus 4 or something like that.
Well, that's some wonderful advice, and I will definitely do that. I've put a note here for me to remember to change the grapple to 1 attack, and I'll do that before I write it into an official stat block.
Cool.
Other than that, what do you guys think about the monster concept itself?
The concept is fine.
I like the concept a lot, yeah.
Melt your face?
Yep.
Is it too much that it makes them gain vulnerability to fire if they're poisoned?
No.
No.
I mean...
Like you said, they lose quite a bit to get this ability, too.
Yeah,
so.
right. Yeah, the mobility loss is huge.
Yeah,
so.
That's a very key feature, I feel like.
They got really low AC and everything, too. But I really like this because I wanted something... Well, first of all, I needed something for my desert thing I'm running. And the thing in Descent into Avernus. So I was like, well, I would love a giant, like, flaming scorpion. Let's see if I can find one. And I found one in the 4th edition book, so...
There you go.
Anyways, I think that'll do it for...
You know what? I would make one other change.
What's that?
Since you are taking away the flying speed, the Wyvern's basic movement speed is only 20 feet. I'd make that.
Oh,
That's
just make that
good.
30.
That way people can't just see it and to go, Plan B.
Run away.
Plan B. Oh, that makes sense.
You know, and then stand 80 feet away and shoot their longbows and their magic missiles. Melt it over time. Something like this that is going to be so melee focused has to be able to keep up with the things that it's attacking.
Yep.
That's
that
fair.
makes sense. There's a
although it does have Spitfire
it has a range
to
attack.
fight back. But that's not going to be enough, I don't think,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think
120 feet's pretty short.
to make up for being, quadruple, quintuple teamed by adventurers.
Yeah.
Although that is pretty big damage on Spitfire.
Yeah, it is. It's like I said, this runs along the top of the damage range for that CR level. So, all right. Anyways, so this is hopefully I am going to take what you said into consideration, and I probably will make those recommended changes because you are by far more of an expert at this than me. So, know when you're beat. All right, I think that'll do it for our monster variant, the Hellstinger Scorpion. Austin, wait, you usually get the magic item, don't you?
I usually get the magic item, but...
That's okay.
Would you like to tell us about our encounter of the podcast?
Absolutely. So our encounter of the podcast is, this is dark, slave abuse.
Oh, man, I am just on...
Yeah, we're on fire today.
Yeah, right?
While part of a caravan between major cities, one of the travelers, a noble, is regularly seen mistreating her palanquin slaves. She allows the metal chain manacles to chafe their neck and legs. She throws their bowls of gruel at them, wasting it, and whips them when they stop to attempt to tend to their wounds. She treats the slave commoners as if they are less than animals. She has a servant spy travel from group to group, offering to buy one or more people to replace the useless wretches she is stuck with. Eventually, one of her slaves collapses, nearly causing the death of nearly causing the palanquin to topple. She either beats the slave to death, or chains the slave to a rock or tree to leave them to die, unless one of the characters intervenes. She has a veteran and 2d4 thugs as guards. Now, immediately I'm thinking, well, I don't care if you're a noble and if I don't get caught. You just had a happy accident in the trails.
Yep.
If we just make it look like she was mauled by a bear, she was mauled by a bear.
Well, our druid can change.
Or summon one.
Or
Or summon one.
What do you think about this, Keith?
I personally wouldn't use it, and
Okay.
one of the reasons, the primary reason, is that I have a long time, which I think, in the absence of other mechanisms that people have come up with, is a good baseline, and that is treat sensitive topics with sensitivity.
Yeah,
And
I can
slavery
agree.
is a very sensitive topic.
Right.
I can see this encounter filling people with a lot of negative feelings, and not just the kind of negative feelings that make them want to take out their aggressions on the noble and free the slaves, which I would say is the natural thing to want to do when confronted with this situation. But I would really ask what an encounter like this adds to your adventure, how necessary it is, and whether some other scenario might not be just as good or better, for the to advance whatever point you're trying to make in the story.
Makes the argument that it could be depending on what kind of game you're going for and who your players are and what they are okay with as well. So
Yeah, but I'm also not super sensitive to other people's feelings. Though yesterday I did cancel the live stream of our patron game because it involved slave drow locked in cages.
Ah.
So I didn't stream that for that very reason because of the
Yeah.
because everything. So while I am a little sensitive, I totally understand your concerns with something like this, and I do think it depends on the table that you run with.
Absolutely.
Like-
I was also going to add to that that you can always. So in this instance, I think the theme is that the noble hierarchy is obviously yes.
Yeah.
That is the short answer. So you can always do this in different ways and not just this way. You can always say like, oh, maybe they're extorting money from the local civilians or something like that.
Or you can change them to animals, I suppose.
yeah,
Or just, yeah, exactly. You can always change the
context.
I mean,
yes,
they don't
thank you.
have to be. They don't have to be slaves. They don't have to be in chains. They can be
Exactly.
liveried servants, and she's still mistreated. And
I can see
then
that.
you've removed the probably unnecessary element of slavery, while still establishing her as someone who needs to be shown the.
This is why he's a writer.
Yeah.
Because that is a beautiful way to keep pretty much the entire structure of everything while removing
Yeah,
the
and-
problem.
And I guess that comes down to everyone's personal preference. Honestly,
Yep.
I totally understand what he's saying and where he's coming from. For me, the person's a villain. They need to be taken out.
Yep.
Pull on any emotion that pisses the players off. So I definitely understand that this could probably be introduced and handled a little better, especially from a more sensitive topic. But for me, it's a fantasy game and slavery is a thing. So
Although I've also heard the argument multiple times too, where some people say this content didn't make me feel comfortable, and only for the DM to turn like it wasn't supposed to make you feel comfortable.
right. And people can always choose not to run this
Yeah.
stuff too.
Oh no,
That's the
absolutely.
difference, right?
Yeah.
So, well, I welcome everyone's feedback. Thank you guys so much. I think that'll do it for our slave abuse encounter of the podcast. Austin, would you like to tell us about our magic item today?
So I guess Ian's getting the Dungeon Master tip.
If
Yeah.
so.
Oh, I'm sorry. You just read that one, didn't you? Ian, would you like to tell us about our magic item?
Today's magic item is Potion of Life Shield, and it's also uncommon.
Ooh.
This yellow mixture shields you from danger, but at the cost of your life force, with a sweet taste of lemon.
Ooh.
When you drink this potion, you gain the power to bend your life energy into a protective, magical barrier for 1 minute. When you take damage, you can use your reaction to expend a number of hit dice equal up to half your level. Add your con modifier to the total number rolled and reduce the damage by that total. This was inspired by last week's topic, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. Last week we covered recovery dice by Total Party Kill Games, and I love the idea. I made it a potion.
When life hands you lemons, just turn it into lemonade and make it do
Potion?
insane things to protect you.
No. I say you make life-taking lemons back, make exploding lemons, and burn life's house down.
Ah.
What do you think about this magic item, Keith?
I dig it. I think it's an interesting mechanic. Basically, what you're doing is you're borrowing against your next short rest.
Yes.
You're preemptively spending your hit dice to heal without necessarily gaining back any of the other resources that you would gain back from a short rest. This is definitely going to be a better deal for some classes than for others, depending on whether the resources they have to manage replenish with a long rest or any rest at all. I'd have to take a close look at it, at the actual ramifications class by class, but I think it's a cool idea.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, there's no playtesting in this at all. It's just,
This is just ideas being thrown out left and right.
I think a regular potion is 2 weak. What if we just borrowed some of their hit dice and let them gain temporary hit points in the interim, and let them worry about the shortcomings of not regaining permanent hit points for a while.
Right.
So,
Oh, now you didn't say temporary hit points, because that's another way to implement this if you wanted to. Instead of reducing the damage by that total, give them temporary hit points equal to the total number rolled. Which means they may still be badly wounded, but the next hit that comes in on them is going to be taken off those temp HP instead.
Could do that.
I totally forgot. That's what I originally wrote it as, and then I ended up borrowing from the Goliath feature, and I ended up changing it. So here I am thinking the temporary hit point thing, when that was the original iteration before I changed it.
Well, I guess we're just going to put it back to
both can
temporary
work.
hit points.
Hey, you can try it either way.
Right, for sure.
I mean, it's written. It doesn't
See
mention
which one
temporary
feels
hit points, but yeah.
Yep. I will give Crit Nation a poll. Which do you like better and which is more balanced? Everyone likes the one, whatever they say they like the most is the one that's imbalanced and needs to change.
Yes.
All right.
That's the truth.
I think that'll do it for our magic item, the Potion of Life Shield.
Awesome.
Our Dungeon Master tip of the podcast is the Broken Blade of Heroes. Let's be honest, magical items are some of the most precious things to get in any sort of RPG, because really that's what the players generally want out of their game. Not all. Some people don't care about that, and that's okay.
I love magic items.
But instead of giving a magic item to a player, finding it in a chest, or ripping it off a dead body, what if they start or discover a powerful artifact? You can use that as a quest hook for adventures and campaign settings. The restoration of a magical item would be absolutely amazing. Like, what if you find this big bad enemy guy that's way outside of your ability to handle, but if you could find the right this weapon that can weaken them, or
The Broken Blade of Heroes.
yeah.
The Sword of Steve smiting.
Anyways, what I'm trying to say is magical items can make for powerful campaign
Like quest hooks.
hooks. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Keith?
I think it's great. It's a classic, but it's not one that's done to death. It's not a cliche.
Right.
I would say, just as a caution, make sure that the process of assembling the weapon doesn't feel too fetch quest. I would definitely try to play up as much as possible the social interaction aspects of collecting the parts of the weapon and whatever materials or arcane knowledge you need in order to reforge. to try to make it feel less like you're checking items off a list,
Yes,
and
I would agree.
more like the process of reforging the broken blade of heroes really requires you to prove that you are a deserving hero who should be wielding the
Ooh,
as
that's
much
good.
as possible. Try to get that feeling into whatever quests you're requiring of the party to get that blade put back together.
That's really good.
I was gonna say, like, this guy just spews out really good ideas nonstop, does he?
And then he puts them on paper.
And I was just, and we're
Keep 'em
just like,
coming.
oh man.
Oh yeah, I love it, and I think you're right on point with the fetch questing thing, including like special rituals that need to be done. Where and I'm not talking like, hey, you got to cast a ritual. No, you need to get what happened in Dragon Ball the Z the movie.
Are you
where
talking
they had
about the
to,
Z sword?
They had to make him a god, so
Oh,
they had
yeah.
to get so many people in a circle
yep.
around him. So maybe you have to find like 5 pure of heart, men who have not laid with a woman yet in order to forge this weapon. Okay, that might be a little weird, but
Yeah, I was gonna say you're
A little bit.
okay, so
It's not super out there, but okay.
well, I wanted to say
Well,
virgins,
here's a thought.
but
Okay,
that's
so
so, like,
you've
played
got
out.
a special ritual required to return the lost magic to the island. What if that ritual isn't?
Is it what?
What if somebody has to develop that ritual from scratch, and the creation and the discovery of that ritual is a challenge all itself? Maybe that's even a more significant chapter in the reforging of the broken blade than finding the shards is.
Oh my God, you like are on such a different level.
Yeah,
than
yeah, I was gonna say we are amateurs in comparison.
Right?
Holy cow!
That is absolutely genius. And you know what would be really cool? Now, this may be something I would think would be cool. If they went through all that trouble to develop this ritual, maybe it has some other effects. Maybe the players learn how to imbue an item with basic, like the magic, what is the stupid magical weapon spell? But maybe it lasts a long time or something. Oh, that's cool.
Or like maybe because of the incantations they had to learn, maybe they accidentally picked up a new language or something.
Or
You
a
could
new
reward
spell.
your players
Yeah.
with different things that they wouldn't normally think about. So maybe this ritual had to be performed using, let's go with Celestial. So now that they have had this conversation with angels and they've had to extensively learn the ins and outs of this language and how the intonation works, now they have this they didn't realize it, but they've picked up a new skill. They can now speak Celestial. They
Oh, that's
understand this and how it how they can maybe they can flavor it to now they can flavor it into their spells. Like, oh, I now know how to cast this spell in Celestial, which is a cool little thing I could do now. Haha.
I could
It's a
do it
parlor
before.
trick.
I like that.
Stuff like that.
So
Bards would probably have fun with that.
So, that's some great stuff, Keith. Clearly, we really need to.
We need to up our
We
game.
need to up our game like 5 miles to keep up with him. All right, I think that'll do for our Dungeon Master tip, the Broken Blade of Heroes.
Woo!
Our player tip of the podcast is
Don't be a dick.
and you can avoid dickitude by concentration breaker. Now, this comes right from your book. This was one of the things that I absolutely fell in love with when I was reading through it because I didn't actually ever think about this as a monk player. And I'm gonna. Would you like to read your quote, Keith, for us?
Sure. This is aimed at monks in general, and open hand monks in particular.
Yep.
Flurry of blows. Now, this is in the context of low levels.
Yeah.
Flurry of blows should be your finishing move against the toughest enemy on the field. As you gain more key points to use in each combat encounter, you can apply it to other situations, such as forcing a caster who's sustaining a spell to make multiple concentration checks.
Never thought of
I've
that.
never thought of that.
Why am I?
I-
Why am I so inept?
This was,
Justin.
I don't know. I've played monks before, and I never thought, hey, that guy's concentrating on bless. I should go pure flurry of blows and break that shit.
Yeah, I should just punch him in the face 3 times in under 6 seconds. It's beautiful.
It's little tidbits like this that are just full live to tell the tale, man. And I've been playing 5th edition since the playtest, and shit, Never thought that I'm now.
I
It
guess-
makes
again,
sense.
I guess neither of us really play monks, right?
I played a few of them. I played one to level 9, so
I
that's
played only
embarrassing.
one to like level 3, so I guess I
So-
don't have as much as you apparently, but still, like
Still,
the thought never crossed my mind.
Yeah, dude, this is the kind of genius that's contained inside of your book. Can I just say thank you for that? I know it sounds ridiculous, but this isn't something I had ever considered.
Yeah,
Using it to break spellcasters' concentrations.
I think it's come up with me before, but it's more incidental as part of my actions.
Right, as
Mhm.
opposed to, hey, I should go interrupt that guy's bless.
yeah, it's not an active thought; it's like a happy accident almost, I guess.
Like I can think of like that one time where we were at that one con and we fought that one wizard on top of a tower.
You just kicked him off?
Well, him with stunning fists, and then with your blows coming shoving him back till he fell off the tower.
Nice.
Hey, well, you know.
You were there.
Yeah, I
Good job.
remember. It was good stuff.
Yep.
Do you have any other points on this, Keith?
No, but you just reminded me of another memorable moment, which was from the Lost Mine of Fandel, when there was a young green dragon that that the party was fighting, and it had flown up to the top of its lair. It was trying to get away, and it had just perched on the edge of the top of the tower, was getting ready to fly off, and our bard hit it with Tasha's hideous laughter, and it fell off the tower and died from the fall.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
I love it. So yeah, I think that'll do it for our player tip of the podcast. Don't be a dick. And you can avoid dickitude by picking up Live to Tell the Tale, because damn, it's full of good shit.
Concentration breaker.
Yeah, 5 points for anybody that knows where that came from.
Fighting games?
Are you referring to literally any fighting game ever
No,
now, or
Combo Breaker is specifically from
Mortal Kombat 9?
Oh my God.
Are you referring to that?
You all no, get the hell out
No,
of
that's
my
not-
studio right now.
Was that called Combo Breaker? I don't remember.
Anyway,
Killer Instinct, people.
Oh yeah, Killer
You
Instinct.
guys suck.
Oh man.
Anyways,
that was back in the SNES.
I think
Well, and
that'll
it got
do it for
revamped.
our show today. Before we close out, Keith, would you like to give yourself a plug before we go? Last touch on where people can pick up your product, where they can check out your blog, where can they follow you?
Sure. My blog is The Monsters Know What They're Doing, themonstersknow.com. No punctuation in that, all solid. My books are The Monsters Know What They're Doing, Combat Tactics for Dungeon Masters, and Live to Tell the Tale, Combat Tactics for Players. Those are available wherever you buy trade books, so your friendly local independent bookstore, bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. From Simon and Schuster. Also, Oath of Deliverance Paladin on the DM's Guild now, and soon We See It Differently, use factions in conflict.
Very cool of you. We
Thanks for the
appreciate it.
invitation.
Crit Nation, please join us on our next episode. We'll be discussing the new Unearthed Arcana's new feats. I'm really excited to talk about this. Some of those feats, I keep saying it every time, sound a lot like weapon perks that I made and released. I know Christopher,
You can't blink on his name now.
I know you're listening, and I know you're taking my ideas, and I love it. Anyways, I'm really excited to cover that. Yeah, that's you.
And if you have any feedback, unearthed tips and tricks, or topics you would like us to discuss, please send them to us. You can email them to us at critacademy@gmail.com, or you can find us pretty much anywhere at Crit Academy. That includes like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you enjoyed your experience at Crit Academy, help other people find the show by leaving a review on iTunes, or just send them a message saying how much you done.
I love it when you guys do that. Please send more.
Yep. And also, be sure to give us a like and a share.
Yep. Make sure to subscribe to our show at critacademy.com. Follow us on Twitch, and subscribe on YouTube. If you head on over to our website and check that out, you can subscribe Every week we give away fat loots. You saw us give away 2 today. We do that every single week. Also, when you sign up, I send you a resource of 7 of my most favorite resources. I'm gonna have to change that to 8 now. So yeah. Also, make sure to check out our fellowship members there as well. If you haven't checked out Interparty Conflict, Gabe and Jeff do a phenomenal job answering your questions to get the most out of your tabletop RPG experiences. I love those guys. It is bar none my favorite podcast to listen to. Also, head on over to Game Master Stash on Facebook and check out their content. Every few minutes, they're releasing new stuff. And I'm not even kidding. They're posting crap all day long that are character concepts, magical items, all kinds of new setting ideas. It's a lot. I don't know how they do it. All right. I think that'll do it for our show today. I am your host, Justin.
And I'm Keith. Let's see if I can say did it come through?
No, I can't believe it.
So,
Your last name is cursed. It's unspeakable.
for those that don't know, we're not even kidding. For like the 10 minutes before we tried to get this started, he was trying to clear.
Discord will not permit me to say my last name
Yes.
through its
and we don't know why.
Or us, for that matter.
We can't say it either. Every time we say Ammann, he says it doesn't come through on his end.
Oh, I heard it that time.
Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Oh my, we did it.
Like we thought something was possessing our equipment.
Yeah,
We're like, what the hell? It's censoring him.
we couldn't believe it.
It's
No.
like the MIB guys.
Yep.
Oh, and I'm your co-host Austin. Sorry.
And I'm your co-host, Ian. Thanks for listening.
Keep your blades sharp and spells prepared, heroes.
We should totally have like an outtakes and
We're
it's
gonna-
just beautiful
Just tell Seth
nonsensical
he's-
chaos.
Yeah, it's really cool. I should probably hit the transition there.